The catalyst of war. The human child's brain splattered on the Galactic Council floor as the alien executioner coldly fired his disruptor. That innocent blood unleashed humanity's fury and brought forth the full wrath of Earth's most ancient warships, hidden away for centuries, awaiting this moment of betrayal. Captain Logan Carter stood on the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, orbiting Earth, fists and jaw clenched as he watched the live feed. The Council's decree. The repulsive Ithorian counselor, Xanth, had just smugly announced the Council's ban on all human FTL travel, confining mankind to its home system. Then, for the crime of a human boy allegedly vandalizing an alien shrine, they brutally executed the crying child. "Let this be a lesson to your primitive species," Xanth sneered at the camera. "Humanity's disobedience will no longer be tolerated." Humanity's fury. Logan's voice was a hoarse whisper. "They killed a child." Commander Hawkins gripped the rail, knuckles white. "What are your orders, sir?" A cold fury filled Logan's eyes as he turned to his crew. "Signal the fleet, power up the Nova cannons, and plot an FTL jump straight to the Galactic Council's headquarters." Revealing the ancient fleet. Deep within the heart of the Rocky Mountains, stone cracked and parted, camouflage doors swinging open. Captain Logan Carter marched down into the hidden depths, flanked by his highest-ranking Earth Defense Force officers. The long concrete halls were dark, lit only by flickering fluorescent bulbs. Boot heels clicked on cement as the group approached the end of the corridor, where an immense blast door of solid steel stood. Logan stepped forward, placing his palm against the biometric scanner. It beeped in recognition, and slowly, ponderously, the door began to grind open. It swung wide to reveal a cavernous underground hangar shrouded in shadow. Logan hit a switch on the wall, and floodlights snapped on, illuminating the secret space. The officers gasped, eyes going wide. Filling the hangar were rows upon rows of warships, their hulls forged from a strange iridescent metal that glimmered under the lights. The Sigma fleet. The ships were angular, sleek, predatory, like nothing any of the men had seen before. Logan turned to face his men, his face hard as granite. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the Sigma fleet. Built in secret during the early days of human space exploration and hidden away as a last resort. When the Council confined us to our home system, they had no idea of the ace up our sleeve." Commander Hawkins stepped closer to the nearest vessel, reaching out to run a hand along the prow, his brow furrowed in awe. "I thought the Sigma fleet was just a myth." Logan shook his head. "The Sigma fleet is very real, and it's time to show the galaxy exactly what human ingenuity and determination can accomplish. The Council wants to confine us to Earth. Let's see how they like it when we show up on their doorstep with technology centuries ahead of their own." The call to arms. "With the power of the Sigma fleet, we will make them pay for their crimes and secure humanity's place among the stars." The gathered officers exchanged glances, faces set with steely resolve. As one, they nodded. Logan straightened his uniform and strode towards the lead ship, the others falling into step behind him. "It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one," Logan said, his voice ringing through the hangar. "We have been pushed too far, and now we push back. Today, we bring the fight to the Council's door. Today, they learn the consequences of their betrayal. Today, we unleash the Sigma fleet." Unleashing the Sigma fleet. The revelation. Light years away, Counselor Xanth lounged on a floating divan in his lavish quarters, the very picture of decadence. The craggy-faced Ithorian sipped a glowing green liquor, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. The drink was potent enough to strip paint off a starship hull, but to Xanth, it might as well have been water. An air chime sounded, and Xanth glanced up languidly as a holoscreen winked on, revealing the face of Yik, his aide. "Counselor, our long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels entering our system at high speeds," Yik said, his voice tight with anxiety. Xanth waved a dismissive hand, his many rings glinting. So send a patrol to intercept them. Probably just some upstart race trying to make a name for themselves. Yick shook his head, the movement jerky with barely suppressed panic. Sir, the patrol is already gone. They were destroyed the moment they entered weapons range of the unknown ships. We didn't even have time to get a visual on what attacked them. The realization. Xanth sat bolt upright, his drink sloshing over the side of the goblet. What? How is that possible? What kind of weapons are they using? He lurched to his feet, striding over to an ornate control panel set into the wall. His fingers flew over the interface, punching in a code. The room darkened as a massive holographic display burst to life, filling the air with a glowing star map of the Oran system. A cluster of angry red dots was speeding towards the central blue orb that represented the Oran homeworld. Xanth stared uncomprehendingly as he took in the sheer number of incoming ships. By the gods, there are hundreds of them. How could an unknown race possibly have a fleet that size without us knowing about it? An icy tendril of dread curled in Xanth's gut as he studied the display, a horrifying suspicion crystallizing in his mind. He turned to the holoscreen, meeting Yick's terrified gaze. Yick, tell me everything you can about the configuration and capabilities of those ships. Leave nothing out. Xanth's voice was deathly calm, belying the fear churning inside him. Because if he was right about the identity of these invaders, then he had just made the gravest mistake of his life, a mistake that might very well spell the end of everything he knew. The Sigma fleet attacks. Yick's report was not encouraging. The ships were angular and sleek, their hulls composed of an unknown iridescent alloy that defied scans. They moved with impossible grace and speed, their formations flawless, and their weapons, by the ancestors, their weapons, plasma cannons that tore through shields like they were paper, missiles that moved faster than the eye could track, and never missed, some strange directed energy beam that sliced ships into pieces with surgical precision. But worst of all was the symbol emblazoned on the prows of the incoming ships, a symbol that every species in the galaxy had grown to fear, even if only through whispered rumors and half-remembered legends. The symbol of the Terran Dominion. Humanity had returned, and this time they had come not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors armed with technology beyond the Oran's wildest nightmares. Xanth stumbled back from the display, his heart's hammering a panicked staccato beat against his ribs. He thought of the human child cut down on the floor of the council chambers on his order, the catalyst for this invasion. He had gravely miscalculated. He knew that now. They all had. And now his people would pay the price for his arrogance. As the Terran fleet drew inexorably closer, Xanth found himself wondering if there was any force in the universe that could stop the oncoming storm. Somehow, he doubted it. Humanity's wrath. The battle begins. On the view screen, Xanth's eyes bulged, his mouth opening and closing like a beached fish. He gripped the arms of his command chair, the plastic creaking under the force of his talons. Logan didn't give him a chance to recover. Xanth seemed to deflate, his shoulders slumping. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "What do you want, human?" Logan leaned forward, his eyes boring into Xanth's. "Justice. The Council will rescind its ban on human FTL travel, effective immediately. You will acknowledge our right to expand and explore as we see fit. Any further acts of aggression against humanity will be met with swift and devastating retaliation." The show of force. Xanth's nostrils flared, his pride warring with his fear. "The Council will never agree to your demands. You're just one species. You can't dictate terms to the entire galaxy." Logan nodded to Samir, who typed a command into his console. The view screen split, Xanth's image shrinking to a corner as a new visual took center stage. It showed the wreckage of the destroyed Ithorian battlecruiser, the twisted metal still glowing cherry red. But it was what was happening around the debris field that made Xanth gasp. Swarms of small, agile craft were pouring out of the Sigma fleet's hangar bays, darting towards the remaining Oran ships like angry hornets. They moved with impossible speed and grace, weaving and dodging through the defensive fire with ease. And then they opened up with their own weapons, and the Auran ships began to die. Beams of searing blue-white energy sliced through shields and hulls alike, leaving glowing scars in their wake. Missiles streaked from launch tubes, corkscrewing through space to impact with devastating force. The tide turns. The Auran return fire was sporadic, panicked. They couldn't seem to lock onto the human fighters, their targeting systems confused by the strange material of their hulls. In mere minutes, a full third of the Auran fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. The remaining ships were in disarray, their formation broken, their captains shouting contradictory orders. It was a rout. Throughout it all, the Sigma fleet hung back, weapons primed but silent. They didn't need to engage. Their fighter screen was more than enough to handle the outclassed Ithorian warships. Logan turned back to Xanth, his expression grim. "I won't ask again, counselor. Yield and let this be the end of it." Xanth slumped back in his chair, all the fight gone out of him. He looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They had gravely underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. With a trembling hand, Xanth reached out and terminated the transmission. The view screen went dark. The aftermath. The victory. Logan turned to Hawkins, his eyes hard. "Signal the fleet. All ships, weapons tight. Give them a chance to comply." Hawkins nodded, relaying the order. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Every eye was glued to the tactical display, watching the red and blue icons that represented the two fleets. Then, slowly, the red icons began to move. One by one, the Auran ships were powering down their weapons, their drives. They were surrendering. A cheer went up from the human crew, fists pumping the air, backs being slapped. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees. But Logan didn't join in the celebration. He just stared at the display, his face an unreadable mask. He knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not forgive this humiliation easily. There would be repercussions, political and military. The road ahead would be long and hard, paved with conflict and sacrifice. But Logan also knew that this was a turning point. No longer would humanity be content to live under the Council's thumb. No longer would they be second-class citizens in their own galaxy. The message. Today, they had proven that they could not only stand up to the alien powers that sought to control them, but that they could beat them. Today, they had taken their first step towards a new future, a future where humanity charted its own course among the stars. And may God help anyone who tried to stand in their way. Xanth's bulging eyes darted across the redouts, the numbers and symbols blurring together into a maelstrom of impending doom. The human ships had vanished from the screens as if they'd never been there at all. But the counselor knew better. They were out there, waiting, invisible predators ready to strike. He slammed a webbed fist on the console, barking orders in the guttural Ithorian language. Surround them, box them in, and destroy them. The Ghost Protocol. The Auran fleet lurched into motion, the ponderous capital ships straining to outmaneuver their nimble adversaries. They spread out in a vast sphere, weapons bristling from every surface as they sought to entrap the Terran Sigma fleet. On the Indomitable's bridge, Logan leaned back in his command chair, a smile playing across his lips as he watched the aliens' clumsy attempt at tactics. Beside him, Samir frowned at the display. "They're trying to hem us in, cut off our escape routes. Should I order the fleet to pull back?" Logan shook his head, eyes glittering with anticipation. "Negative. They want to play at being the superior species. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. All ships," he leaned forward, keying the fleet-wide comm, "initiate Ghost Protocol." A chorus of acknowledgments lit up the comm board. The invisible fleet. On the view screen, the Sigma fleet seemed to ripple and distort, the contours of the ships blurring and then fading from view entirely as the advanced stealth field engaged. In seconds, the human vessels had vanished from both visual and sensor detection, wraiths haunting the void. Xanth gaped at his displays in disbelief, his crew erupting into a cacophony of panicked shouts and warning klaxons. The human ships were just gone, as if they had never existed. The ambush. Impossible. The counselor's words dissolved into a scream as the Oran flagship convulsed under a titanic impact. Sparks geysered from shattered consoles, the deck pitching wildly beneath Xanth's feet. All around, the rest of the Oran armada was faring no better. Blooms of fire and shrapnel burst from a dozen ships as the first salvo from the invisible Sigma fleet found its mark. The alien shields flared and died under the onslaught, their hull plates crumpling like foil as the undetectable projectiles slammed home. The turning point. The human assault. Xanth staggered to the flagship's viewport, his heart's pounding a terrified rhythm in his chest. He watched, in mute horror as his fleet was torn apart, piece by piece, the human weapons striking with merciless precision. On the Indomitable, Logan observed the one-sided slaughter with cold satisfaction. Let the aliens feel the same fear and helplessness they had inflicted on so many. Let them reap the bitter harvest of their cruelty and arrogance. "Ceasefire," he ordered after a long moment, the words heavy with finality. As quickly as it had begun, the barrage halted, leaving the once proud Oran fleet shattered and leaderless. Smoldering hulks drifted in the silent void, the pitiful remnants of the Council's might. The ultimatum. Logan stared at Xanth through the comm screen, his gaze searing in its intensity. When he spoke, each word was edged in steel. "Look upon your fleet now, Counselor. See how it has been humbled, how your vaunted power has been proven to be nothing more than a brittle facade. Just as you held the life of that innocent child in your hands, so now I hold the fate of your entire species." He leaned forward, his face filling the screen, eyes boring into the trembling Oran. "I want you to feel that fear, Xanth. I want you to know in the depths of your soul how close you are to annihilation, how easy it would be for me to give the order and consign your wretched kind to oblivion." The message delivered. The human smiled then, a cold and terrible thing, devoid of warmth or mercy. "But I won't. Not yet. I spare you now for one purpose only, to be a messenger. You will return to your council, and you will tell them what transpired here. You will make them understand that the age of their dominion is at an end. Humanity will no longer tolerate the yoke of oppression. We will claim our rightful place among the stars, and we will brook no opposition. Those who stand against us will be ground to dust and cast into the stellar winds." He raised a hand in mocking benediction. "Go now, Xanth. Run back to your masters with your tail between your legs, and pray that when next we meet, I am feeling merciful for your sake and for the sake of your entire race." The transmission cut off, leaving Xanth to stare at a blank screen, the taste of ashes thick on his tongue. The galaxy had changed this day, and he had been the catalyst. The road ahead. The future unfolds. Logan terminated the transmission with a curt nod, Xanth's face vanishing from the view screen. He turned to face his bridge crew, his brow furrowed. "This is only the start. The Council won't let this stand. They'll gather their forces and hit us with everything they've got." Sumir spoke up, his fingers flying over his console. "Captain, if the Council unites the other species against us, even the Sigma fleet could be outmatched. We've got the tech advantage, but they have the numbers." The next move. Logan nodded, his tactical mind already mapping out potential strategies. "Then we need to level the playing field. Helm, plot a course for the Orcs Nebula." Max burn. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances, but leaped into action, hands darting over controls. The deck thrummed beneath their feet as the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light as they hurtled through the void. Logan gathered his officers in the briefing room, the holographic display casting a ghostly blue glow over their faces. "The Korax Nebula is Vorian territory. They used to be a powerful warrior culture before the Council conquered them centuries ago. They've been toiling as slaves ever since. Our intel suggests they're primed for an uprising, and an alliance with them could give us the manpower we need. The alliance. The fleet dropped back into real space on the outskirts of the nebula, its swirling purple and blue gases painting the view screen. The sensors pinged with contacts, a network of Voran mining outposts, each one crawling with armed Council overseers. Logan's lips curled into a predatory smile. All ships, disengage cloak. The human fleet shimmered into existence, the sudden appearance of the gleaming warships sending the overseers into a panicked frenzy. The Vorian response. Within minutes, the Council ships were in full retreat, their engines flaring as they fled, leaving the bewildered but hopeful Voran workers staring out at the human vessels. Logan opened a channel to the largest outpost, and a weathered Voran face filled the screen, his scales marred by old battle scars. The alien regarded Logan warily. "I am Captain Logan Carter of Earth. We are here to offer you a chance to break your chains and take vengeance on your enslavers." The proposal. The Vorian narrowed his eyes, suspicion written in every line of his body. "And why should we trust you, human? Your species are newcomers to the galactic stage. What could you possibly do for us?" In response, Logan transmitted the footage of the confrontation with Xanth and the decisive rout of the Oran Armada. As the Voran leader watched, his eyes widened, disbelief giving way to a fierce, hungry gleam. When the recording finished, he looked at Logan with newfound respect. "You've shown your strength, Earther. What do you want from us?" Logan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "I propose an alliance. Fight alongside us, and together we will shatter the Council's grip on the galaxy, not just for humanity, but for all those they've ground under their heel." A new alliance. The Voran threw his head back and laughed, a harsh guttural sound filled with bloodlust and the promise of violence. "You have a deal, human. The Voran will stand with you, and together we will savor the taste of the Council's terror." As the screen went dark, Logan turned to his crew, a fire burning in his eyes. "The game pieces are moving into position. Prepare the fleet. It's time we bring the fight to the Council's doorstep." The final confrontation. The combined fleet. The combined human and Voran fleet tore out of hyperspace at the fringes of the Galactic Council's home system, a densely packed cluster of heavily populated worlds and immense orbital installations. Instantly, warning klaxons wailed across the system as the Council's defenses came online, a seemingly impenetrable barrier of warships assembling around the central planet, the heart of the Council's dominion. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Logan surveyed the gathered forces with a discerning gaze. They've pulled back their fleets from across the galaxy. The core of their military strength is here. Samir scowled at the tactical readout. "Even with the Voran numbers, we're still outmatched in raw firepower." Phase 1. Logan nodded grimly, "Which is why we won't be engaging them head-on. We have to be tactical about this." He keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All vessels, commence Phase 1." The human and Voran ships began to maneuver, not towards the waiting Council armada, but in a broad arc, skirting the system's perimeter and angling for a massive space station bristling with sensor arrays and communication antennae. "That's their primary system-wide comms and surveillance nexus," Logan explained. "We knock that out, we blind them and sow chaos in their coordination." As the fleet closed on the station, the Council warships guarding it accelerated to intercept. Just before they entered firing range, the human vessels shimmered and multiplied, each ship abruptly fracturing into a dozen mirror images. The Council ships wavered, thrown into confusion as their scanners were inundated with false returns. By the time they realized the ruse, it was too late. The true human ships, shrouded by the sensor phantoms, were already on top of them. The attack. The void around the station erupted into a vicious melee, the Council vessels fighting valiantly, but outclassed by the humans' technological edge and the Voran's sheer savagery. Within minutes, The station's defenses were overrun, and a fusillade of human quantum torpedoes reduced the massive construct to an expanding cloud of wreckage. Across the system, Council ships reeled as their communications were cut, their fleet-wide data network dissolving into white noise. Amidst the disarray, the human and Voran ships pressed their advantage, hammering key targets, shipyards, weapons emplacements, resupply points, with surgical exactitude. Phase 2. On the Indomitable, Logan watched as the Council's tight defensive formation started to fray, their ships floundering, to react to threats flaring up across the system. Phase 1 accomplished. Commence Phase 2. The human and Voran fleet regrouped, no longer skirting the main Council armada, but driving straight at it, weapons hot. Logan opened a channel to the Council flagship. "This is Captain Logan Carter of the Earth Sigma Fleet. Your comms are severed, your defenses are buckling, and your fleet is in chaos. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared." The defiance. There was a protracted silence. Then a familiar visage filled the screen. Counselor Xanth, his features contorted with spiteful defiance. "We will never yield to you, human scum. We will battle to the last vessel, the last warrior, the last gasp." Logan regarded him icily. So be it. He cut the channel and turned to his crew. "Signal all ships, no mercy given. Let's end this." The human and Voran ships plunged into the heart of the Council fleet, weapons blazing as the alien vessels swarmed to meet them. The climax. The void lit up with the glare of 1,000 exploding suns as the two sides clashed, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the gulf between them. Logan gripped the arms of his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a barrage of impacts, its shields flaring. On the view screen, a human destroyer erupted into a ball of plasma as a Council dreadnought's siege cannon found its mark. A Voran cruiser, trailing flames and debris, rammed a Council frigate, both ships disappearing in a blinding flash of mutual annihilation. "Concentrate fire on their command ships," Logan barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "We cut off the head, the body dies." The final blow. The human fleet shifted formation, the Indomitable at the tip of the spear as they bore down on the Council's leadership vessels. The alien ships moved to screen their commanders, pouring a storm of fire into the human advance. A Council battleship, its hull pitted and scorched, loomed before the Indomitable, its grav cannons hammering at the human dreadnought's shield. Logan gritted his teeth as consoles sparked and exploded around him, the bridge filling with acrid smoke. "Divert power to forward shields and weapons," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Samir, find me a weak point." Samir's hands flew over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. There, a fluctuation in their aft shield grid, coordinates Gamma 615. The Indomitable swung hard to starboard, its prow aimed squarely at the Council battleship's stern. A heartbeat later, its guns erupted, a searing lance of concentrated energy scorching across the void to impact directly on the weak point in the alien ship's defenses. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Council vessel seemed to bulge outward, cracks racing across its hull as secondary explosions chained through its interior. With a final, soundless detonation, the mighty warship shattered, torn apart from within by the catastrophic reactor breach. The Council's fall. Through the expanding field of debris, Logan caught a glimpse of the Council flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons, Xanth's ship, the seat of the Council's power and arrogance. Logan leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "All ships, converge on the flagship. It's time to cut the head off the snake." The human and Voran ships smashed into the Council armada, weapons blazing. Beams of searing energy sliced through enemy hulls, missiles corkscrewed through the void to detonate against failing shields in blossoms of fire. The Council ships returned fire, but the Allies' advanced technology and sheer ferocity overwhelmed them. The endgame. At the heart of the chaos, the Indomitable and Xanth's flagship hounded each other in a vicious duel, lances of energy crackling back and forth between the two mighty vessels, chewing through armor, boiling away hull plating. On the Indomitable's bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks, Logan gripping his command chair as the deck shuddered beneath him. The Indomitable's guns thundered in response, a relentless barrage hammering into the Council flagship's stern. The enemy ship's shields flared, flickered, then died under the onslaught. Flame blossomed from its engine section as the Indomitable's weapons found their mark. The flagship spun out of control, trailing debris and plasma. But it was too late. The dreadnought's engines flared one last time before it was consumed in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippling through space. The remaining Council ships, seeing their leader's defeat, began to power down their weapons, surrendering in the face of overwhelming force. A new dawn. Logan watched as the tactical display showed the Council fleet's icons flickering to blue, signaling their surrender. A cheer erupted from the Indomitable's bridge crew, but Logan's face remained a mask of cold determination. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but humanity had taken its first step towards a future where they would no longer be oppressed, where they would forge their own destiny among the stars. He turned to his crew, his voice steady and resolute. This is just the beginning. The galaxy will learn to respect humanity. We will build alliances, strengthen our defenses, and ensure that no one ever dares to threaten our home again. Today, we have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be broken. Today, we have claimed our place among the stars. The Indomitable and the Allied fleet turned their prows towards Earth, the stars stretching out before them as they began the journey home, victorious and unbowed, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.